Afternoon, guys, girls, anyone that's watching. Haven't been up for a while, um, so I've been thinking about where to take the channel. I don't get a lot of views. I just want to say, although my channel is monetized, I don't get any money for this. It's just to raise awareness and stuff like that. So the title of the video is "Harsh Realities of Drug Addiction," and as you might know from my previous videos, I spent a life in addiction, so I'm just gonna go through some of the really bad things that happen during addiction. And I go back to the 80s, go through all the stuff that's happened to me and how I've come through the other side. I'm still in recovery now. I'm just coming off the last bit of medication, doing okay. Just want to let everyone know. Still clean, not using drugs at all, maybe a little bit of cannabis, but in my drug clinic, we're not tested for cannabis. So, basically that's no problem. Some people can help with certain things, so I'm looking into maybe getting a medical prescription for cannabis, a private prescription, so I'm waiting for a referral from my GP. There's a few companies out there that are doing that now, and because I've had other physical problems with pain and stuff, so and the musculoskeletal problems, the cannabis helps with stuff like that, and also helps with insomnia and stuff like that. So let's move off from that and get to the main subject. So one of the first things, obviously, is when you're doing heroin and crack, especially heroin and crack together, overdosing, which has happened to me many times. Intravenous drug use, overdosing. It can happen through smoking, although it's very rare. I do know one person that has died. Well, I know of one person that died overdosed from smoking, but it was due to they had been drinking a lot of alcohol, and it wasn't a regular overdose. They choked on their own vomit and died, But usually, if you're using a needle, injecting drugs is the main cause for overdose. And back in the 80s, we didn't have naloxone pens and all that stuff then, and I just want to say, from overdosing, what happened to me, your brain starved of oxygen, and you get permanent brain damage. Is a possibility when this happens, if you are lucky enough to survive, like I did, and obviously pretty sure that I suffered some brain damage for all the overdoses. So that's happened to me on many occasions, and I've been hospitalised and brought back round with naloxone or Narcan, whatever you want to call it. But not for many years, because as you know, I'm in recovery now, and I don't use drugs anymore apart from cannabis and some prescribed medication. I am looking into getting a cannabis prescription. I'm getting a referral from a GP, hopefully, to a private practice for prescribing cannabis, which will help with my physical ailments that I have, musculoskeletal pain, insomnia, stuff like that. And if you're getting a medical prescription, you don't have to sort of get involved in the criminal side of it then. So that's one of the reasons I'm going to be doing that. So before, I'm not involved in crime anymore, just concentrating on my recovery. And like I said, I'm lucky to be alive. So apart from the overdoses, like I said before, in '88 I overdosed. I was in a coma for a week, and I had some burns on my left shin and my right knee, and my ribs, and nearly on my face. My whole face luckily it could have been covered in burns. And that time I was in a coma for a week in Guy's Hospital in South East London. So obviously possibly got brain damage from being starved of oxygen, when my brain was starved of oxygen, because I collapsed by an iron radiator in the flat I was living in, like this drugs flat in Deptford, dealer's house. Took the drugs and collapsed by a radiator on my return from the bathroom, and I was left there for 2-3 days, and the radiator burnt into my flesh, till someone found me, and then an ambulance took me to hospital. Luckily, I recovered from that, but like an idiot, I went straight back on the drugs, and at the time you couldn't. There were a few needle exchanges around, and some chemists would sell you syringes, but there was a lot more sharing in the 80s, and people could get infectious diseases and die. This happened to me. I was with a friend who's dead now, who died from cancer, bowel cancer, and I used his needle because that was the only one there was, and caught hepatitis B. And at the time, there was no vaccination like there is now for that disease. So I caught that, I became jaundiced, and ended up in hospital on my deathbed. But luckily, I pulled through. The only thing I could do was a good diet of fruit and vegetables. Pulled through and became Australian antigen, as it's called, whereas basically I've got the antibodies for that, which means I could no longer catch it again or give it to anybody else. And then move on to another strain of hepatitis C, which is really prevalent in the 90s. You could get that from sharing a needle. But I just want to state a fact: it isn't just using needles that you catch these infectious diseases, these killer diseases from. It's from intercourse, obviously, but also sharing drug paraphernalia, not just needles, tubes that you use to inhale smoke, stuff like that, pipes, all sorts of things, So it's a bit of a myth to think that you can only catch things like HCV, hepatitis C virus, hepatitis B, and HIV from just sharing needles, So yeah. So luckily, like I say, I survived the hepatitis B and I have antibodies. But then in the 90s, hepatitis C was more prevalent, and there was no vaccination then either. It was only in the last decade that they found a vaccination for hepatitis C, I think. And that's sort of a slow burn killer. You'd catch it, maybe not have symptoms, or if you did, it could just be like flu symptoms on and off. And you could have that for many years without knowing. And all in the time that was going on, your liver would get cirrhosis, which is scarring of the liver, and that would eventually kill you, and turn into liver cancer, and you die. I know a few people that's happened to, a few friends I've lost through that. Luckily, I had it for many years, or thought I did. I'm not sure how long, but what happened? I eventually self-cured it. This is before all the vaccinations come out and all that sort of stuff. And I have the antibodies for it, so luckily it's not just the Hep B virus, the Hep C virus. I'm immune to that as well. I have the antibodies for that as well. So yeah, I've been really lucky. So another thing I've had that I want to move on to is venous arterial ulcer. I nearly lost my leg, and that was from the same thing, from intravenous drug use. What happened? I've been banging up in my left leg, in the area where I already had bad skin problem, scarring on the skin from a previous overdose on my left shin. I've been using that area to inject, and nothing happened at the time. I hadn't possibly had a little missed the vein, which happens a lot. So basically I was in prison, and this ulcer started bursting out on my quite aggressive ulcer, burst out on my left shin. Didn't get any treatment. When I was released, I sought treatment for it then, and obviously because it was on an old wound, the skin wasn't so strong, so basically it got worse and worse, and got to the stage where the consultant surgeon, Miss Vig, at Mayday Hospital in Croydon, wanted to amputate my leg. And I'd seen this happen to a lot of other people, you know. But obviously, you know, when you're involved in that life, you don't think of all that. It's like you're deluded, you know. Basically, heroin and crack addiction, heroin and crack use takes a lot more out of you than it gives. You know, anyone that says any different is obviously deluded or has never had a habit. So basically, yeah, you know, you people, I say, you know, there's a lot of people that are addicts that go to work, don't get involved in crime, so to speak, but in England, drug addiction is criminalised. It's a crime to go and buy drugs. You know, but some people will get their drugs from a private prescription of a doctor. But you know, there will always come a time when they won't have access to their regular amount of drugs, and that's when all the problems really start. You know. So yeah, I was talking about the ulcer. One thing I want to say, like, I was at a drug clinic in Croydon, and I see a guy. He was in one of those electric wheelchairs. You know, he'd had his leg amputated, and I was saying to him, asking him how he felt about all that. He said, "Oh, my life's so much better since they cut my leg off. You know, I get more money from the social and all this stuff, but I've got a flat and all this stuff." I thought to myself, I didn't say it to him. I thought, God, you must be joking, mate. I don't care. No amount of money would I exchange for the loss of any of my limbs, you know. But that's the mentality with some people, you know. But luckily, I refused to sign the paperwork for surgery of having my leg cut off, and it took many years, but eventually this ulcer healed up, even though it nearly killed me another time because it bled out. It was in compression. Like I say, it was a venous ulcer. I lost a couple of pints of blood, and refused to go to hospital. I was at my mum's house, and then the police came round, said, "If you don't go to hospital, we're going to arrest you." There was just blood everywhere, and my poor sister had to cleaned it all up when I was in the hospital. And then I got up to the hospital, it stopped bleeding, and I discharged myself. So yeah, it was so stupid in my old life, but luckily I'm still here today. So yeah, that's just another thing. And another thing when you're using those needles is abscesses. You know, you miss the vein and you get an abscess. I've got little scars all over my legs from abscesses from intravenous use in my legs. You know, maybe the vein's so small and the veins are destroyed, or you miss and you get an abscess and it becomes infected. You know, similar to an ulcer and abscess, but what I've had with these abscesses, they can turn into something called cellulitis. It's nothing to do with, you know, cellulite in pictures you see of celebrities. It's a different thing. You know, it's an infection that can kill you. So I've had that a few times, and luckily been hospitalised and strong intravenous antibiotics. Remember the time I was in Worthing Hospital for that, and obviously they couldn't find a vein, which happens a lot with drug addicts because all your veins are destroyed from the drug abuse, you know, and someone might be in a road traffic accident and they might need a blood transfusion immediately, and if their veins are bad, you know, they're going to die because they, you know, the doctor or nurse won't be able to get or the paramedic won't be able to get a vein, you know, and because of the time situation, the urgency, they would die, you know. But luckily with me, I was in the hospital when this happened. There was a problem. This happened a few times with me, them getting a vein to give me intravenous antibiotics, but luckily I was in the hospital, and you know, they use ultrasound. I had to have a line stuck down into my lungs, and a drip put into my neck, so yeah, not very pleasant experience, and it can go wrong. You can have your lung punctured and that, if it goes wrong. So we're very lucky in this country because we get free NHS health treatment. So yeah, where was I? I've done hepatitis diseases A and B, overdoses, abscesses, another thing, DVTs, deep vein thrombosis. I've had 2 or 3 DVTs over the years. Like I say, my addiction spans my whole life, virtually from the age of 15 till now. So you're talking 40 years, and the first time DVTs, it was from injecting in my groin. And the reason people inject in their groin, it's because of their arms, their hands, they've used up all their veins, and they go to their groin, which is a big vein. Once you know where it is, you use the old scar to guide you back into the same injecting point, but over time it gets swollen, and you can miss, and you can get things like blood clots. You can get a blood clot in the groin, or it can move to another part of your body, like it did with me one time. Went from the groin to my toe, and the pain was it was horrible. I was in Bromley Hospital. But sometimes it can move and go straight to your lung or your brain, which is called a pulmonary embolism, and that could kill you instantly. Luckily, this didn't happen to me, but it was pretty bad. I remember being in the clinic in the 90s at St Thomas's Hospital, I think it was, in southeast London, and I remember going to the clinic, and all the other patients in the clinic were like in their 70s and 80s, old age pensioners. I felt really out of place being a man in my 20s, being in this clinic, having a similar illness, which was something that doesn't really happen to people until they're at the end of their life, and all these things are self-inflicted, but at the time you're just so deluded, it just becomes part of your life. So yeah, we've covered abscesses, ulcers, hepatitis, overdoses, abscesses and ulcers. Also, they get infected, and like what I had Staphylococcus and Streptococcus, which are these super bugs like MRSA. You get things like that as well. Oh God, there's so many things. Some of the worst things that happen, when you're using the crack and the heroin, you're dehydrated all the time, and basically all your teeth fall out like they did with me. You end up with no teeth, I have dentures, top denture, and there's no teeth left there. If I had the money, I would go abroad, possibly, and get an all-on-4 implant, but maybe in the future. Now I'm not using drugs and being a bit more careful with my money. Maybe that's what I can do in the future. But yeah, that's not good for the self-esteem, having no teeth and stuff, but like I say, I used to sort of brush my teeth and go to the dentist, but back then I remember going to the dentist once in my 30s, late 30s, and the dentist removed 9 teeth in one appointment, 9 teeth in 1 hour. I don't know if they was doing that for financial reasons. Well, obviously they got paid for it, but so I end up with no teeth. Hold on. I should really do, I was going to do this into a part 2. So what else is there? So yeah, I was just thinking, imagine all the stuff that I've just talked about, that these substances, the bad things they do to your body, that's happening to your mind as well, so the mental health side of it, we know that these sort of drugs, especially the stimulant side of drugs, will cause psychosis, bad paranoia, false beliefs. You're basically living in a different reality when you're on all that stuff, and yeah, the mental health side of it, that never goes away. So you could end up being on antipsychotic medication, like me, like I have been, antidepressants, like I have to take, so it just goes on and on. And for me, eventually, I was just weighing the good side of everything to that lifestyle with the bad side of everything, and it just wasn't worth it for me anymore, And then you've got the criminal side of it, not so much now because everyone's more aware in the world because of the internet, but back in the 80s, it was very taboo, drug addiction, and no one really talked about it, and people just weren't as informed, even though it was just as bad back then, probably worse back then, because I do know the drugs were a lot stronger in the 80s and 90s than what they are now, so that meant more overdoses, so yeah, we covered a lot. Basically, it's just a 20-minute video just to get back into the swing of uploading and stuff like that. Like I said, I haven't done much recently, so yeah. What else have I been doing recently? Yeah, I'm saving up for some transport, either a car or a motorbike, so hopefully when I get a car or a motorbike, I do have a driving license, which I lost my license and didn't have a license for 10 years. I got a ban, from driving under the influence of alcohol and drugs, and I was banned for 5 years. But what it was, when I tried to get my license back, I had to go for the medical, and obviously I couldn't pass the medical because I couldn't give a clean sample. So it was well over 10 years that I was without my license. So I managed to get it back in the last 2 or 3 years, passed the medical, all the drug testing and stuff like that. So yeah, just saving up for a vehicle at the moment. So when I do get a vehicle, hopefully I'll do a lot more videos and stuff, get out and about and start doing some videos in different areas. So that's about it, guys. Really, I'm just going to say goodbye. Just going to say I hope you're all well, and I should be up next month. Basically going to try and just get a video uploaded every month, just to stay in touch and say hi to the subs and the viewers. And yeah, that's it, guys, and speak to you all soon.